everyone, Dan with eBEFOREi, back again with another review. This one's kind of a surprise. I just so happen to be at my local Target that carries nothing ever that's new, and they happen to have Sergeant Kup. So I picked one up. I'm very excited to have this, and we'll get him opened up here in just a second and see if he is as neat as I think he is. Looking at the package, you've got great artwork here. That looks good. Now I know that a lot of people think that this should have been Ironhide. He was released as Ironhide overseas, but I like the way that, at least in the design of the artwork, that this character looks. I think he looks like Sergeant Kup. So we'll see if that carries over into the toy itself. DVD included. Can't see which episode they included. We'll have to wait and see. Oh wait, loose cannons. I caught that in there. Alright, so DVD, full episode, whatever. Robots in disguise, you've got your Cybertronian writing, Sergeant Kup. Some warnings, don't put this in your mouth, kids. You'll choke on it. Over on the side, we have technical specs. So is this what we would expect out of Sergeant Kup? His strength is a 6, intelligence an 8, speed a 4, endurance a 9. That guy can run all night. Rank is a 7. Courage 10, Fire Blast 7, Skill 7. Again, there's that great artwork. Looking around on the back, you've got the bio, which I'll read here in just a moment. 2 pictures of Sergeant Kup, the Prime cast, and yeah, you've got an Autobot symbol here on the side. Sergeant Kup, Deluxe Class Series 1, Figure 13. And on the bottom, they're advertising Decepticon Rumble, Shadow Strike Bumblebee, and Arachnid. Let's go ahead and read the bio.
There's a rumor among younger Autobots that Sergeant Kup is laser-proof. He has a habit of walking calmly through even the thickest crossfire to deliver advice or encouragement to raw recruits cowering under cover. The bots that serve under him think he might have a screw loose somewhere, but they'd still gladly follow him anywhere.
All right. Snap-on cannons. And in case you didn't know, this is his truck mode right there. But I don't know what this is. You don't tell me what this is. And just, okay. Anyway, so that is Sergeant Kup inside of the box. Let's get him opened up and get him transformed and see if this guy carries over and does this fine artwork justice. Let's see. All right, here's Sergeant Kup opened up and out of his box. And this is my first time seeing it. I have not transformed him yet, and I just want to get a good initial first impression. I did put the snap-on cannons here. So my initial thought of the truck is I'm not a fan of the color green that they used in this plastic. It looks a little garbage trucky. Not that there's anything wrong with a garbage truck, but it doesn't come across as a military grade green that I would expect to see in a Sergeant Kup figure. That and the odd choice of the fluorescent green on top really, and the gold in the front, really leaves this figure looking kind of like a mismatch of leftover paint at the factory, sadly enough. Now, the truck itself looks cool. I like the way the truck looks. The truck rolls on all 4 wheels very nicely. There's nothing hanging down that would stop this thing from rolling at all. The paint, as I mentioned, you know, you've got this gold up front, which looks pretty good. You've got the fog lights here that have not been painted anything different other than the gold, so it's just the gold sweeping straight across this part. The fluorescent green, the plastic on the top of the hood appears to be painted green, whereas the top of the vehicle is molded in plastic color, I believe. I could be wrong about that. On the side, you have nothing in the wheels. Kind of a shame. You know, I like it when they put a little bit of touch-up in the rims of the wheels of these figures. You have this, again, fluorescent green. The gold carries over on the front. Moving on to the back, you do have painted dark plastic, very shiny. So that's kind of nice. And so really, you know, that's it. There's no tail lights. There's no license plate. You know, he does have the fog lights on top, and that's gold as well. But outside of that, you know, that's really the simple paint applications of the truck. Again, I think the truck looks good. He looks kind of tough. Yeah. Now, he's fairly small. Size comparison for Sergeant Kup. Here he is next to Generations Sergeant Kup. Huge difference here. Enormous size difference. I'm not sure if this is coming across well on camera, but I mean, Good night. That is a humongous size difference between Generations Kup and the new Transformers Prime Kup. These are both deluxe scale figures. Oh my gosh. I mean, you know, I know that these things are smaller than they used to be. I get that. But putting the new Sergeant Kup next to the Generations Kup, it almost looks like we're dealing with a Legion class figure here. I mean, look how it's really small. Now, I don't know how big the robot mode's going to end up, and maybe they'll be comparable once I get them both transformed. But yeah, huge, huge size difference. This is a very small truck. Lockdown, happen to have him close by. Again, huge difference. Here he is next to Transformers Prime Wheeljack. Again, these are the same toy line, but Transformers Prime Wheeljack is just thicker and just a lot more plastic here than what you're getting in a truck in Sergeant Kup. So yeah, I mean, yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me. Here he is next to Fall of Cybertron Jazz. It's about the same size. And Fall of Cybertron Jazz is a very small figure. So, yeah, I mean, these guys have definitely gotten smaller, no question. Whether or not that is a bad thing or not, all depends on your perspective and how you look at it. Now, I will say that his snap-on cannons, when you take them off, it exposes a giant hole in the back of this truck. I can wear this as a pinky ring. I mean, it's... I don't know why they did that. Why didn't they cover that up? Because that takes the whole idea of this being a pickup truck and kind of kills it. Not a fan of that. Not a fan of that at all. Again, from the side, looks great. From the front, looks great. As soon as you tilt this, you get this giant hole. So, snap-on cannons on the back look good. But yeah, when they're not on, this hole is pretty glaring. Now, with the snap-on cannons themselves, I would think that it might make more sense if you kind of had these things faced out and put on, because again, it kind of looks like, well, it kind of looks like it's got a jet engine on the back, to me anyway. The problem with that is you can see that this part right here, this hole, is really just the slot for the ball joint. Alright? You can't fit a weapon in there, so the only place to post your snap-on cannons is right here. And so the issue with this looking like a jet engine, if you try to put this in that post, the back part of this accessory hits up against the back of the truck and you just can't slot it. You'd think that you might be able to put it in that seemingly hole type area where the ball joint sits, but it's too wide. It won't, well, I guess it sort of stays, but it's very loose. And you just tip it upside down and it comes out. So what they want you to do is to post it in. They call it a snap-on. It's not snapping into anything. Gently glide it in. And so, you know, you got what look like two big Coke bottles on the back there. Again, it's kind of a weird choice. Yeah. So that is that. Now you do see that he has some ports on the sides. So you could put these things on the sides as well. I have a feeling that these cannons are going to look better in robot mode than I'm getting from him on the truck right now. So as it is, you know, certainly the back of this vehicle looks better with these than without, but odd design choice. I'm not really sure why they did that. Looking at the weapon up close, there's a lot of, actually the weapon's not that bad. There's no paint on it, but there's a lot of in-plastic molding, which looks good. And on the inside, you do see that it looks like a cannon. I'm drawing a blank on the word I'm looking for. But the spiraling shooter cannon thing, I'll think of it later. But yeah, I think the detail, I mean, again, they didn't have to do that on the inside. And they did, and I think that looks really good. Now, one thing on the back of the truck, another glaring thing that I'm seeing, fists right in the back window. You know, the underneath kibble looks pretty good. There's not a whole lot that you can see, other than an Autobot symbol. But, yeah, truck mode has some flaws. Let's get him transformed and see if he might be a bit more cool in his robot mode. Transforming Kup is fairly simple. The first thing you want to do is pull off these back pieces. And I say it's simple, it's still somewhat of a satisfying, rewarding transformation, I think. So, yeah, well, let's keep going. From here, what you want to do is grab the top part, right here, and you basically just want to lift this whole thing up. You just kind of wiggle it up and separate, and just bring the whole thing forward, just like that. Next, you want to come down here to the sides, and you want to just give this a pull. These are the arms, and you just kind of pull them out just like that and get it out of the way. The next thing you want to do is build the feet. So we're going to separate this part, just like that. Then you want to take this bit right here with the Autobot symbol and lift it straight up, as high as it'll go. You get a head reveal when you do that. Okay, then you want to take the feet and go ahead and turn them. Okay, then you want to pull out this section right here, which ends up being his foot. Pull it out one more time, that's actually his foot, and then lift this whole part forward like that. Come around to the other side, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to pull this down, lift it up, and you've built both of his legs. Moving on to the upper portion of Kup. As we've already gotten the head revealed, you want to go ahead and take your thumb in here and move these pieces straight out. Just like that. You can kind of get these things out of the way. Come in here, move this side straight out. All right. You kind of want to maybe lift these up a little bit. And we'll go through two sections of transformation. To move on, you want to get these wheels behind him. You want to take these arm pieces, just sort of put them inside like that, and then bend everything down until you have things right where they should be, so that this wheel is on the back and the fist is facing forward. We'll do this on the other side as well. Collapse that in, open it up, keep the wheel in place, bend the elbow, and you basically have his arms done from there. You want to lift these things up as high as they'll go. Now, there are alternate transformations, and I know you've seen this if you've watched other videos that contain the Sergeant Kup instructions. So I'll go ahead and cover that here too. You take this thing and just put it down as far as it'll go. Kind of take his arms like that. Oh, you know what? I missed a very important step here. You want to straighten out these legs, and to do that, you got to reach in here, and you'll see that there's this whole section that comes down. Okay? Just like that. When you've done it correctly, you've got these plastic bits that are kind of sticking out. And then straighten up the feet, and he'll be a much taller Sergeant Kup. That looks much better. All right, so moving on. Again, you can transform him in kind of the alternate transformation of just kind of leaving him right where he's at. Kind of bend the shoulder pads up. And you can stand him up. And that would be the alternate transformation for Sergeant Kup. Notice that we didn't do anything with this backpack, so there's a whole back of the vehicle that's still sitting on his back. Why would you want to do this? Well, some people like to differentiate Kup from Ironhide. If they've purchased the Japanese version of Ironhide, then, you know, they might want Kup to look a bit different, and so they'll leave him like this. And that's fine. You're certainly welcome to do that. I don't think this looks that good compared to the way that he looks when you finish transformation. So that's what we're going to do right now. To finish it from here, we're going to just straighten these things back out. We're going to come around to the back, and this is somewhat of a pain, and I feel like there's going to be some scratched paint the more that I do this. But basically you want to kind of get in here and lift this part straight up and over these pieces right here. But you got to get it over that little plastic hump right there, and then do the same thing on the other side. So you kind of just lift it out and then push it down. I can see that adding some stressing here in the future, so I'm not thrilled about that, but it is what it is. All right, so from here we're going to take this top part, and you're going to bend this thing down just like that. And this slots in a way that is pretty ingenious. It really does fit together quite like a puzzle. And so to do that, what we're going to do is you'll notice that this piece right here is going to slot down so that it comes up over the plastic bits in the front, that clear plastic, but it's going to fit in between the front arm section. So get the wheels kind of out of the way, and you want to come in here, and you'll notice underneath you've got these two tabs that are going to slot right into position right there. So you want to make sure that you've got this lined up just right, and just keep, well, once you get everything lined up, you're just going to push it down and it kind of snaps into place as you just heard there. Now from here you take this back part and you just tip it down a little bit, and you know, from the front it looks pretty good, but look what you're left with. This giant hanging piece coming off the back. Now they could have put another hinge here to let you tip it over, but they didn't. Don't worry, there's a way around this. It involves you pulling this piece off. It's just a little friction joint. There's nothing else, no pin or anything like that. Take it off, swap it around, and just put it right back into place. When you do that, you're going to be able to put this right down the way that you should, nice and flush up against the back. Now the only thing really left at this point to complete transformation is to get his weapons situated. Now, I showed you these in vehicle mode. What I didn't show you is that these things combine. So I guess before we do that, the obvious thing that you can do with these cannons is put them on the sides of his arms, like that, and like that, and you can use them as weapons that way. What I like to do is I like to take these weapons, and you can actually combine them to make one long rifle. So to do that, you literally just plug them in. I mean, it really is that simple. So you get that in just like that, and just squeeze it till it fits. And now Kup can hold his cannon, and man, does that ever look cool. At this point, the only thing left is to pose him up. And here we have Sergeant Kup in his robot mode. So the robot mode more than makes up for the flaws in his vehicle mode. I really think that this guy looks really, really good. You know, I will say that the first thing I think of when I see this character isn't necessarily Sergeant Kup, but as just a kind of a tough-looking robot that, you know, that looks like he'd kick down somebody's front door and take charge of a commando team of robots. This is your guy right here. So I think that, again, I think that the figure turned out really, really well. The details on Sergeant Kup are wonderful. I mean, you can see that he's got these very, very neat yellow eyes. Now, that is not light piped, so it's yellow paint, but I don't blame them because there's no real way for light to get in back here. So even if they did put in the light piping plastic, you wouldn't really get anything out of it. So I think that turned out good. The face itself, I think, turned out really, really nice. Again, it doesn't necessarily scream Kup necessarily, but, you know, it's certainly a new interpretation of it. And really, I guess if I had to compare if this guy looks more like how I would expect Kup or an Ironhide to look, I might be more inclined to think Kup. There's even, you know, some of the plastic is shaped in a way that looks like he even has a bit of a mustache, which would be kind of neat on a Kup-like character, the Army Drill Sergeant. So very, very cool. Paint, again, you know, this carries over from the car mode or the truck mode, so you've got the gold paint here. You've got a very, very nice small Autobot symbol, which I think looks really, really good. I'll focus in on it as much as I can because it is tiny, but I mean, the paint on it is really flawless. It looks great. My figure has a bit of a smudge here on the clear plastic plate. I think that I could probably get that off, but, you know, something to look out for. I'm not even sure if I could see that when it was packaged, but I think that I could have. Outside of that, you're not really getting a whole lot more paint-wise. You do have some nice green paint here on the sides of the Autobot symbol. This in itself almost looks like a face. You've got the eye mask and, you know, the mouthpiece, so that's kind of neat. That's a neat look. On the side, you know, he's a robot. Stands up fairly straight. Not bad. Not bad at all. Again, since we moved this part to the back, I think that the backpack is minimal, and it actually looks pretty good. The plastic itself fills in fairly well, so there's not a ton of hollow bits back here. And, yeah, so that's Sergeant Kup. Articulation. He's got some arm movement, but because you have this plastic joint here, you kind of have to fiddle with it to get it up to go straight up in the air. But I think you still get a good range of motion on the arms. There's no waist articulation. The head, I think, might be on a ball joint. Yep, it is on a ball joint, but because it is really stuck back there, I mean, there's not really a lot that you can do with it. So there's that. Hands are molded in, so you cannot move. There's no wrist articulation. You do have an elbow joint here. Onto the legs, you have a ball joint right there, and a knee hinge, and you've got some foot pivot. There's not a ton of heel on the back of this character. I mean, it looks like there is, but if you stand him up, if you don't get him just right, he's gonna, well, now he's standing real well. But I guess you have to just kind of fiddle with his feet so that he doesn't want to fall back. Weapons, as I already mentioned, you know, I think with this character, it looks good as he's holding this thing. One very interesting thing to note is that when I combine these things for the first time and slot it in his hand, it wouldn't fit in his hand because this plastic bit right here. And I'm looking at this thing going, well, why? That's goofy. And then I realized, as I drop it, that on this side, you've got a hole. Actually, on both of these, you've got holes on one side that you don't have on the other. And its whole reason of being here, its entire reason of existence, is so that this can fit inside the hand. And let me see if I can get the camera around to show you this. Is that when you put this inside his hand, that hole goes right over this plastic bit on the hand. And it pushes down, and you've got a great, great weapon. It holds onto it fantastic. So that is an amazing touch that, you know, the engineers saw it, they caught it, they worked it out, and I think that the weapon ended up looking perfect. Size comparison on Sergeant Kup. Here he is standing next to Ratchet from the same line, and they scale fairly well. Now, the one thing that I think is a bit odd is that Ratchet has a fairly decent-sized head, and standing next to him, Kup has this big, tough-looking body, but in comparison, a little tiny head, which only looks weird standing next to other figures. So by himself, I think he looks fine, and it actually doesn't look horrible standing next to Ratchet, but you know, it is a little bit odd. Now, if you want to get into some unfair comparisons, here he is next to Generations Kup, transformed. You know, the one thing I'll say is that Kup, as a pre-defined character, this is the guy that fits the way that this character looked on television and comics and such. So this is definitely a reinterpretation of the character, but the size is so off that it makes my deluxe Kup from Generations line look like a Voyager figure. I mean, it really does. So, you know, I hate to keep moaning about size, but yeah, it's a little depressing that these things keep getting smaller and smaller. And honestly, I'm worried that 15 years from now, and I've said this in other videos, that the Legion or the Scout size figures are going to end up being the new deluxes. And it's depressing, and hopefully that doesn't happen. But man, when you see a scale like this, yeah, we're moving in the wrong direction, for sure. Anyway, so Sergeant Kup, again, I think as a toy, to rate this guy in vehicle mode, I would say that he's got quite a bit of weaknesses, and, you know, if the robot mode was not impressive, I would not recommend this figure. That being said, the robot mode on this guy is fantastic. I love the reinterpretation of Sergeant Kup. To me, yeah, I get that a lot of people are wanting the red Ironhide because I think this figure looks more like an Ironhide. I don't have any issue with this guy. I think he looks like a reimagined Kup. I don't think Ironhide when I see him, and so, you know, I think that as a standalone figure, I think he's going to look great on my shelf. Anyway, that's my video review. Thank you again for watching. You guys have helped me so much make this channel as successful as it has been in a very, very small period of time. I've got a lot of growing to do, and I'm going to do it with everybody's help. So thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already done it by clicking that button. Give me a thumbs up if you like the review. If you want to leave comments, please do so. I love to read everything that you all have to say and like to respond as well. So thanks again. We'll see you again real soon.